What's up, everybody? Good morning from beautiful Central Oregon. Getting ready to go fishing and hang out with the family at the lake, but I was doing some thinking about this off season, and I think, some of the things that we have focused on, obviously, is the Brandon Aiyuk situation. That's been the main topic of interest this off season. But with that, I think that we've overlooked ways that the 49ers can actually improve and try to win a Super Bowl, which is the goal here. I mean, one thing we do know is even without Brandon Aiyuk, they'd be a very competitive team. Obviously, with Brandon Aiyuk, they're going to be even more competitive. And I think that Brandon Ayuk's clearly going to be a part of this team one way or another, whether it's against his will, as far as having a fifth-year agreement, or whether he actually signs a long-term extension, which I do think is coming very, very soon. But that being said, how do the 49ers actually win a Super Bowl? And I know there's like a divide in the fan base. There's a group of people that think, well, you should just shut up and be happy. They're winning. Look at the Tom Zula era. Look at the Dennis Erickson era. Look at all these other things. But the reality is, this team, this era, this coaching staff, even the ownership group, I know we make fun of Jed York, but they all want to win a Super Bowl. So what is stopping them from winning a Super Bowl? Is it just sheer dumb luck? Because certainly luck seems to have not been on their side in many different fashions, from injuries to actually making it to a Super Bowl multiple times and not being able to get it done and cash in. But the way that I see it is, there's been some nuggets that have been dropped this offseason that really kind of give us some details into what the 49ers are missing if they are, in fact, going to try to win a Super Bowl. And it comes down to three different things. Two of them came from Tom Brady. One of them was the offensive line. He talked in depth about how important an offensive line is. This was on with Colin Cowherd the first time he was on. He talked about the offensive line, how important it is. He said, you show me a team with a really good offensive line, and I'll show you a team that is competing to win rings. And then he went on Colin Cowherd for a second time, and he talked about the importance of giving a quarterback autonomy to do what they need to do. And he talked about how some of his biggest wins, biggest moments throughout his career wins came from him having the autonomy to call his own audibles, call his own plays. And we know that Shanahan does give a little autonomy at the line. He calls two plays. You'll see Brock Purdy or any of his quarterbacks tap on their helmet. They'll yell "can," and that means they're switching, either the side that the run's going to, or from a run to a pass, vice versa. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't give his quarterbacks full autonomy to just call whatever play they want. Sometimes you line up and maybe neither of the plays are the right answer, and you're in a big moment. I think back to the Super Bowl when Brandon Aiyuk was wide open on the slant after McDuffie had blitzed. And imagine in that scenario if he had just replaced McDuffie and thrown to Brandon Aiyuk. But instead, Kyle Shanahan wanted him to throw to Christian McCaffrey off to the right. And off to the left, he knew it wasn't open, so he just threw to Jennings. But really, the right play was to read that blitz, modify the play, and go to Brandon Aiyuk. Well, I don't know if it's Brock Purdy couldn't read it. I don't know if it's Brock Purdy didn't have the autonomy. But we do know for sure that he doesn't have full autonomy to do what he wants. And I think that as he grows within this offense, Brock Purdy, I think the right thing to do would be to give him more. And Tom Brady talked about that, how it wasn't an instant thing, but how as time went on, he was able to gain more autonomy and do what he saw fit in calling audibles and protections and all those things. And hopefully Brock Purdy eventually reaches that status. I mean, a lot of people are comparing him to Tom Brady, late round pick, very smart, maybe not as athletically gifted, what have you. So if that is the case, then you would think that at some point Kyle Shanahan would give up some of those reins, and he probably will. Hopefully he will. And then the last thing is, Brandon Aiyuk talked about it in his pivot interview. Geez, it's early. But it was glossed over and it was missed. he talked about how right when this offseason started, he and his agent every day, hour on end, were trying to get a deal done with the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers just weren't willing to talk shop or get it done at the beginning part of the offseason. And he talked about how if a deal had been done at the beginning part of the offseason, he was asking for far less money at that time. Far less money at that time. But the 49ers didn't play ball. And so you saw the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal come through. You saw the Waddle deal come through. You saw Devontae Smith. You saw A.J. Brown. You saw all these deals, Ridley, Pittman, Nico Collins. All these deals started coming through. And now all of a sudden, the price went up for Brandon Aiyuk. So, these are things that we've always thought. We've talked about. We've said, hey, if the 49ers were to get deals done earlier, how much money could they save? And it was all a concept. It was all a thought. It was all an opinion of what might be happening. Well, now we got our answer. At least with Brandon Aiyuk, he wanted to get a deal done early. Him and his agent both did. How much could they have saved? Not only in money, but in time. And Brandon Aiyuk working out full bore. I mean, is he not working out as hard as he should because of this? And so if a deal lingers into the offseason, much like some of the other ones, is he not as in shape as he should be? I don't know that necessarily, but there's a lot of implications that come from not getting deals done early. And again, like I said, the assumption has always been the 49ers wait. And a lot of people try to defend the 49ers and say, well, it's the players, as if the 49ers always get the hardest players to get deals done with. I don't know how that's possible. But Brandon Aiyuk essentially confirmed, at least for him, the deal could have been done much earlier. And it wasn't. And we're not talking last offseason. We're talking this offseason. As soon as the season ended, him and his agent worked tirelessly at the beginning of the offseason to try to get a deal done. And that's where a lot of the frustration of Brandon Aiyuk came from, is that a deal wasn't done as early as he had hoped. And he tried. And it would have been less, and he confirmed that. So I think those are three areas where we can actually quantify, from Brandon Ayuk's mouth as far as what happened with this team specifically. And then from Tom Brady's mouth. I mean, those are two things that if the GOAT is talking, it's got to mean something. And what's important to him and how to roster build and all these things, I think the 49ers should take notice. So we talk about improvement. We talk about how they get over the hump. I know a lot of times as fans, we get frustrated, we complain, what have you. But the reality is there is ways for this roster, this team overall, front office down to improve. And I think those are the three ways. And we've got pretty clear evidence from Tom Brady himself, who we know that it works. And then Brandon Aiyuk talking about how his dealings went with the San Francisco 49ers. So those are areas where if the 49ers can improve those, not only can they make a long-term run and continue to be successful, but we might get a couple Super Bowls out of this thing. What are your thoughts?